pleased that Thandy has agreed to speak with us today. I'm going to ask Thandy to turn her camera on if she's willing, if she's able, and say hi. There you are, Thandy. Nice to have you join us.
Okay, I'm going to switch off my camera.
There we are.
Okay. Good morning, Sean, and good morning, colleagues. Thank you for having me. My name is Thandy Pino. I actually named this corporate politics gone wrong because my experience is actually corporate politics in its nature, in a way. And I think that for senior managers, even actually everybody in supply chain, it has one way or the other come across my situation. It's just that with me, it's just gone to the extreme, and this is where I am, and this is the reason why we're talking about today. So this is basically, in a nutshell, what happened. Level 5 lockdown. We are in the middle of a disaster. The country is closed. Nobody has experienced the emergency of this nature, even though supply chain is always an emergency in its nature. But with this one, I think it was new for all of us. And for me to add more pressure to the dynamic is that I come from a construction procurement environment. So health is actually new to me. The worst emergency I had in my career is a crack in the wall, not someone dying. So I'm walking into this situation whereby we know our user department colleagues. The demand is always high. We need to respond to that. And we always, deep down in us, we want to be the best suppliers to our user department, even though we don't really get to be appreciated. But you go an extra mile, you want to deliver a service for them. And this kind of situation was in no way different. There was a need for PPE, as much as it was something that was ordinarily used all the time, but there was a need for PPE, and we needed to cater. We are the biggest health in the country. All provinces are actually sourcing from the same supply source. So it's all that kind of a stampede happening of trying to get as much as you can, as quick as you can, while also everybody is not even operating because the country is closed. So with that in mind, yes, sure.
Thandy, yeah, just so I think when you started, it's important in the story. You started at the Department of Health, Gauteng Department of Health. I think it was in April 2020. Is that right?
29 March 2022.
29 March 2020.
Yes.
So prior to that, you were at the rail regulator. Before that, you were with
Human settlement.
With
Gauteng Human settlement.
Also a Gauteng provincial department.
Yes.
So you moved into health, and you moved in as the head of supply chain. Is that right?
Correct.
Was there any handover? Because this was a difficult time, right? As you say, it was lockdown. Was there any handover from the previous head of SCM at health to you, or did you just basically move in?
I basically moved in. There was an acting chief director at the time, but what you also need to understand is that there was the COVID response team or structure that was established by the department. And then there was also, remember, Department of Health, it's operating like any other department. Forget the COVID, they still had to render a service.
Sure.
So there was an acting chief director at the time, but now the acting chief director is the head of supply chain from Para. So like it's a huge supply chain. So even for her, juggling the acting chief director role and also being a director in Para, it was another dynamic. So she was also kind of playing that juggling exercise of being at the head office and also being the Para and all of that. So when I joined in, the person whom I can say was the head of supply chain was actually the CFO.
Your voice goes every now and again. I don't know if you are moving away from your microphone or just
Okay, sorry about that.
No. So you were saying the head of the supply chain was basically the CFO, is that right?
To a large extent, yes, with the support of the then acting chief director. So the handover, Sean, no, there was no such. Like I'm saying that it was a madhouse. I literally walked into a madhouse.
Did you walk in, or were you at home straight away? I mean, were we in lockdown already at that time?
We were in lockdown, but in health, we had permits. We already had permits that we could travel. So
and so you could go into the office.
Yes.
Okay.
So for us it was a normal working day. It was just lockdown for everybody else. But for us it was just you go to work every morning, you knock off like good 10, 11 o'clock in the evening or whatever. So we were working like any other normal situation. So you walk in that kind of a setup. The pressure is high. Everybody's running around, and also, I think also what was not captured in the whole story is actually the pressure that everybody was experiencing, including my CFO. Everybody was under so much pressure, and hence I'm saying that remember, Gauteng Health is the biggest health in the country, and you also they have challenges in terms of supply chain under normal circumstances. So COVID brought about an additional burden on the strained supply chain that they were having. So I walked in there. Now PPE has to be secured. I'm experienced in government procurement. I know that there are transversal contracts. I know that there's contracts that institutions will have in place for items that we call them strategic items, because these are what we call strategic items because they're the core items for health. So for me, I'm going with that professional assumption to say that these are whatever. I got an instruction to say, please, these are the companies that you need to appoint for these particular items. Therefore, as a senior manager, we always have your contractors on your phone all the time because we engage with them from time to time on the emergencies. So there's nothing unusual. I have having someone talking to service providers to say, can you appoint these companies? And then I take all the notes and then prepare the letters. Well, we are working with SEP. Remotely, SEP is not available. And at that time, because we are working at the command center, I don't have a team. I've never met my team. I had met the then acting chief director briefly through the introduction. Okay, this is so she's currently acting. She will be taking over from her when you come in. And then now these letters have to be prepared because now we are off-site. We can't issue purchase orders. So what happens is that the letters are prepared. There's a professional trust that you walk in, and I'm of the view that
you got an instruction.
Yes.
That said, these are the supplies that you need to source the PPE from. Yes.
So what happens?
Are you able to say who gave you that instruction?
Well, I did say on the interview that it was my CFO, which is my biggest supervisor.
Okay. And listed the names of the suppliers. So these are the companies that you must get the PPE from.
Yes. Okay. Remember, Sean, like I said, that I'm new in health. I wouldn't know anyone.
Yeah.
Therefore, if somebody said appoint someone, they will have to give me a company. So what then happens is that I prepared all of that, and I've not met my team here at the command center. And like I'm saying that, my view is that if you walk into an organization and you don't trust your boss on your first day, you have no business living in that organization to begin with. You know, that is just my view. You walk in an interview, you meet, people are interviewing you, and then you get an offer, you make a decision to join this organization. There will be something that will make you feel that it is a right decision to make to join this organization. So there was a professional trust that I had, which I don't think it was being naive of me. Hence, I'm saying that if you're going to be working to an organization where you don't trust anyone, no, don't go. Just don't. So I went there with that professional trust.
Had you had the opportunity to look at what panels were in place, what existing contracts were in place? Had you had that opportunity yet?
Sean, like
I imagine it would have been hectic. So I mean,
it's my first day, colleagues. It's my first day. Literally, it's my first day.
That's important context, yeah.
That is extremely important context.
Yeah.
In a normal setup, on your first day, you spend half of your day in HR, giving them your ID, your whatever. It was your first day, and when you walk in there, you understand that you're gonna walk in. You hit the ground running.
So you literally walked in on day one. You were given a list to say, get this PPE from these companies.
And please, I think what also needs for everybody to understand is that in hindsight now, with the information that you're having now, you kind of want to emphasize on certain things. There's absolutely nothing different in you about what I experienced. This happens all the time in supply chain. You will get suppliers from different people. It could be your supervisor, it could be your fellow colleagues, it could be anyone. And there's no thinking of malicious intent, but as supply chain, we always, when we get all these things, we do due diligence on them. You know, under normal circumstances, when we get companies, you will send a request for quotation to these companies. Before you even send the request for quotation, actually, you go to CSD and check if they are compliant. Because even when we send request for quotation, we send it to compliant companies. So you will check those things and then you send the request for quotation. So that's what you would do. But hence I'm saying that imagine a first day in the middle of a disaster that you've never experienced. So this is an instruction that was given, was executed. And then after the team was met, you then go, now I have resources. The pressure has not kind of become less in a way. But now, because you have now resources, I'm introduced to the team, I know people, I can now, in a way, start doing my work. And then now we have some companies that have appointed, and we know that once the companies have been appointed, they're going to be delivering, payments have to be made, and therefore we need to now do purchase orders, process payment, and everything. Then in that moment, I pick up through my team that the contracts are in there. Yes, I was actually made a correct assumption. The contracts are in place. However, the companies that you appointed are not the ones that are contracted. This now
just slowly, just say that again.
The contracts that you have appointed are not the contracted companies. And then now, if that is the case, that gives rise to possible irregular expenditure.
Right. So did you personally issue the purchase orders to those companies? How did that work? I mean, just because I guess there's somebody has to issue a purchase order. There's systems, processes in place, and controls in place.
John, in Gauteng Health, there's 150 staff complement.
There's a what? Sorry.
So 150 staff complement in supply chain.
150 people in supply chain.
150, yes. So now you can get a sense in terms of, as a chief director, what is it that you personally do? I'm not I'm at that point, I'm not a procurement officer. I run the organization, the unit. You run your unit, you have staff who are trained, we have resources and all of that. So there's nothing that you will personally do, but in terms of accountability, you will have to take accountability of whatever that happens there.
Right.
But I think it's important that you don't think of this as some small office in the corner of my house.
Yes.
Personally, no. It's a teamwork.
So you get the instruction, and then I guess you've got to find somebody then to say, right, please issue purchase orders to these suppliers. I guess that's what you did then. You found somebody who then did that for you. Is that right?
No. Therefore, it's just that I call it corporate politics gone wrong for a reason. It's just that it's one thing that went wrong, but there's absolutely nothing different about what happened. So now the instruction has given rise to irregular expenditure.
That's it.
And now the irregular expenditure needs to be remedied.
Yes.
And twofold. Firstly, you need to put controls in place to make sure that it does not get worse.
Right.
Whatever that has been committed, it remains there. And then also then what has been committed, then how do you then manage it in terms of making sure that it doesn't go further. So what then happens is the remedying part is where then I say, okay, let me report this because hence I did say to you that I'm new in health. It's an industry that I'm new at.
Right.
One thing I knew from human settlement is that there are certain context or maybe industry-based remedies or rules that will be applicable to a particular organ of state. For example, human settlement does not go out on tender for the building of houses. Even if houses are like 100,000 or it's 100 million project, they don't go out on tender because there's a subsidy quantum for this particular house. So for me then is that how I remedy the situation, it's me keeping at the back of my mind to say, maybe there's also some different rules that apply to health in this COVID situation.
Yes.
So in remedying the situation, this is where then conversations start coming up. We have engagement to say, how can we then remedy the situation? The conversation is with the CFO first and also with the broader management at large, which is involved with HOD and all of that. In the conversation, then it comes out to say, I'm Thandy, I'm saying my understanding of the environment and the rules is that this is how you should procure. And then my supervisor says, no. In actual fact, we are in the middle of a disaster, and there's a disaster management act that guides in terms of how we should do things. Therefore, disaster management does actually allows us to actually procure in this fashion. And then this is where then now there's I wouldn't call it a conflict per se, but it's more of viewing things, having a different understanding of how this is supposed to pan out. And I remember, and this the interesting thing about this thing, Sean, is that National Treasury issued a lot of practice notes that they keep issuing and withdrawing, and this is another thing that actually confused everything, because on one of the practice notes, you actually could have your verbal quotations with service providers and then confirm them in writing. So the argument that we raised was to say we are in this situation whereby the country is closed, the supply is limited. I remember China also, I think, was closed, and the US as well. So there were a whole lot of macro and micro environmental issues that had an impact on how we should procure. Therefore, because of that, we are being responsive to this disaster. And that's why we are procuring in this fashion, So those were the conversations that actually now pan out in terms of us, how to remedy the situation. And that is the reason why, to some extent, it never stopped, it continued, because there was those people who were of the view that the end justifies the means. Right now, the priority is getting PPE for our health practitioners. And therefore, we will deal with Treasury and irregular or whatever the case may be. And in that meeting, that basically what came out to say, Thandy, this is what you viewing this thing this way, but that's not the correct way of viewing it. This is how it's supposed to happen, And therefore, the resolution from that meeting after I had now put it in writing in the form of an email to the HOD, where now I've put it in bullet points, the things that I've observed, and therefore I'm of the view that are not happening the way they're supposed to happen. Like the very same thing I said about the instructions that we are giving from the service providers being called over the phone and make the arrangements with them. Deviations, we know that when you deviate, you must first get approval to deviate, only then commit a service provider after. But this time, there was a commitment of a service provider that deviation would be asked afterwards. There was quite a number of things that I raised on that email in terms of what I've observed in the week that I've been. And therefore, in the meeting that we had with the HOD was to say, okay, actually, you're not necessarily lost or maybe saying you are wrong in what you are saying. However, also there's also another view that needs to be appreciated, to say that we are in the middle of a disaster. A country is closed. The unions are on us. Everybody is like literally big pressure on Gauteng Health, not Gauteng Health, all health departments in the country in terms of responding to this matter. So yes, I was removed, and I was told actually I need to go and report back to the head office. And I agreed to go back to the head office for two reasons. Firstly,
when did that happen, Thandy? So, I mean, you sent the email through. You said that was the first week you sent the email through.
Yeah. First week on the 6th of April to be exact, I sent the email. On the 7th of April, we had a meeting to discuss this matter. And then the outcome of the meeting was to say there will be an audit of the letters that we have issued already. And then we'll have to come up with systems and put systems and controls in place in terms of how we should procure in moving forward. That's one of the resolutions. And indeed, it happened because the following day also Treasury was brought in. There was a committee that Treasury introduced, which is going to be an oversight player.
Provincial Treasury.
Provincial Treasury. They're going to come and then on a weekly basis, we're going to report to them what did we buy, how did we buy, account and all of that. And then I think around the 10th of April, then the conversation was, the CFO was like, you know what, I think you need to report back to head office and then you need to leave the command center. I agreed for two reasons. Firstly, I'm not there to be fighting with my boss. I'm just here to do my work. You know, and now this has kind of created some tension of some sort, and therefore I wanted to kind of diffuse the tension. That's one. Secondly, it's true, I'm new from health. I don't know anything about health. I know about construction procurement. And therefore, I was like, you know what, it's fine. I'm going back to the head office. And when I went to the head office, was more to give support based at the head office. So now I'm at the head office. In the head office, now there's a team that is there. That is now, remember, like I said, health, we are doing other things other than COVID. So I'm going to be overseeing the team. And in developing systems and controls in place, a team was established at the command center that will be responsible for the procurement of COVID-related items. And then I will be at the head office overseeing the team that procures everything else. And then the CFO will oversee the team that procures at the command center. And then off I went. And then also Treasury was brought in to say, okay, how do we then remedy the situation? In trying to remedy the situation, we did pick up that some of the service providers actually misled us, saying that they had stock on hand, or they did not have stock on hand. We then decided that.
Sorry, that last part that faded quite badly. There were service providers?
There were service providers that we were made to believe that they have stock on hand when they were called at that time. And now we are 2 weeks later, all deliveries have not been confirmed. Therefore, the decision is to say, in remedying this irregular expenditure, let's cancel those that have not delivered, and then we'll then put systems in place to procure in a structured way. Okay, no problem. That was the resolution taken by Treasury and the committee. It was my last day at the command center. I left, and then I was at the head office, and then everything else continued. Appointments were still being made by the team now that I was not involved in. And then I was involved at the tail end of processing payments. So basically that's what happened. And then I think it was around end of May when then SIU was then brought in to come and investigate. And then when they come and investigate, that's when they picked up a whole lot of things.
That was end of May 2020.
2020, actually, it was first week June 2020. So and then the SIU were brought in to come in. Hence, I'm saying for me, at that time, I was expecting an audit, not necessarily an investigation, because you remember when you look at your irregular expenditure guideline on the determination exercise, you will go as far as bringing such resources if there is any suspicion of fraud and corruption, you know. But I think at that time, everybody, the country was just sober and up in arms and wanted to see some action being taken. So then SIU was brought in to come and investigate what had transpired. But that's basically that. And then coming to then my situation is, like I said, there's nothing new about what I experienced. There's a lot of Thandy situations that are happening in many government departments and SOEs. As we speak now, that happened before. It's just that it's that kind of a situation where now when it goes down, they have to find somebody. And I think if I was not pinned into this, my view is that it will somehow lack legitimacy, because it's an SCM matter. How do you then not have head of SCM being held accountable for this? You know, in all of that. But basically, as I'm saying, it's what happened. And for me now is to say, what can we take as SEM practitioners from this particular experience? You know, what lesson can be taken there? Firstly, yes.
Just if you wouldn't mind, before you get into the lessons, keen to hear the lessons. Just explain a little bit of the context of the command center and head office. Was the command center something that was specific to the Department of Health in Gauteng? Who was running that? Who was responsible for that? How did that relate to what you call head office?
Command center is like any other province. It's your COVID command center. Every province had a command center for in response to COVID for the province. So it was comprised of all NECs and all HODs of the province. It's just that this is a health matter. You find health being a bigger player in it. But what happens is that you have your national COVID command center, and then that was the provincial command center. So we as senior managers of health were also stationed there. But you remember Department of Health is one department that was fully functional during COVID. So therefore, at the head office is whereby now all other things about health are happening. Hospitals need to run, kids need to be immunized. Whatever that health is doing, it was still continuing as such. It's just that this command center was now more of a response structure towards COVID. But that's basically what it was. We could still be operating from our head offices. It would still not be any different, but it was just an offsite setup that was there for management and for the provincial command center. And when it went, us being stationed there, it becomes easier for purpose of reporting because it used to sit every day. We used to submit reports every day. Therefore, for movement of information, it's easier when we were there. So yeah, and then the other staff members were stationed at the office.
So, for example, setting up the Nasrec field hospital, would that still have been done from head office to source the beds and doing that kind of stuff? Was that?
Remember with that, again, is that procurement matters are for head of department. The command center will sit as a province, and then they will talk about what is needed in response to COVID. And if, amongst other things, there's a hospital that needs to be built, and then it will be communicated back to us, and then it will be then implemented in terms of what structures have we put in place in terms of supply chain in response to that. So one of the structures that we had within the supply chain, like for example, there was a team of buyers for COVID, there was a bid evaluation committee for COVID, there was a bid adjudication committee for COVID.
So all based at head office?
Well, it's not about being based there because we were virtual. You could be anywhere. But there was a structure that we know exists. So if anything that has to do with COVID has to be procured, it will be sourced by the team of buyers, and then it will be presented at the COVID bid evaluation committee, and then the COVID bid adjudication committee, and then it goes to the HOD. So that is the structure that we established. That's why on my interview, I talked about the timelines that are very important for one to know what process was applicable at what time. So with everything that happens, it was we were building bridges as we walked them. Yes, certain things happened in the first week, and then we picked up those gaps, and therefore these structures were established and put in place. If one day, maybe when all the information about COVID procurement comes out to the public about Gauteng Health, one will know and will actually appreciate that the irregular procurement actually stopped, I think, around May. Around May last year.
May,
yeah. It never continued beyond that because structures were put in place. And even though it continued around May, one will still pick up improvements along the way. But by May, there were structures in place and we were clear now of what needs to happen. But also you remember, Sean, that also even the lockdown levels were now being relaxed and all of that. But it's not like Department of Health went on a non-compliant rampage for the whole time until
Right.
no, that's not what happened.
Right.
Things were improved, systems and structures were put in place, and things were done correctly.
Emergency procurement didn't go through the bid committees, I assume.
Hence I'm saying that the timelines are important because, for example, Department of okay, I won't mention, let me not mention that. The procurements that were made, all procurements that were made for COVID, remember, did not go out on tender. But they were presented to the evaluation committee, they were presented to the adjudication committee, and accounting officer approved an activation on the basis of measures. So those systems were there and they're still there. They started last year in May.
Right. They started in May, but when you got there, that wasn't in place.
Not actually in May, actually prior to May, I think after I've actually raised this alarm, and then everything else was now working towards having that. But by May, now everything was up in place because there had to be SOPs that had to be presented to Treasury. There had to be people being appointed to this committee. There had to be, the process of establishing.
Sure.
So between April and May, it was that phase of now establishing. I remember there were times where these SOPs were presented to Treasury back and forth, and then there'll be comments, there'll be internal controls, there'll be this, there'll be that. But by May, all of it was done and established and in place. And now everybody knew how then it must go about. So with the irregularity that is being mentioned now, it's based on what SIU has investigated, has come out. And I'm always very cautious to use the word corruption because you would use that word when you have an investigation that informs that statement. The main thing is about the irregularity in terms of your processes not being followed. But as I'm saying that when you go back to your supply chain irregular expenditure framework, you know how you go about doing different stages of determination and coming to the end and the regular when I'm going to take action or whatever the case is. However, as I'm saying that for that 2-month period of April and May, that's where a lot of things happened in terms of us now finding our head and finding our feet on what needs to be done and how it needs to be done. And Treasury was there to walk the journey with us. And then by end of May, all systems were like systems.
Right.
Everybody's clear about what needs to be done, who's who, where it starts, where it goes, where it ends, where it gets reported, and so
Thandy, many people online now didn't listen to the 702 interview. Are you able to just mention some of the irregularities that you picked up? Were all suppliers registered on CSD? What were those when you said that the contracts that were in place weren't valid? What were some of the issues you picked up that you raised?
I think.
Are you able to say that?
What I think what everybody needs to understand about me talking to this team is, guys, Department of Health is not my enemy. I don't hate Department of Health. I don't hate people. I'm not on some rampage to seek revenge. No, I'm not for that. I'm a supply chain practitioner at heart. I love what I do, and I'm always going to be that. And what happened to Department of Health, it's an embarrassment that I also take personally because I'm a public servant. What went wrong in health, what went wrong for all of us, as senior managers in the public sector space. So if you want to reduce it to that nitty-gritty, I would request people to rather go and read that. And you have my but for me, I don't want to paint Department of Health as public enemy number one.
Okay. Okay.
I'm not going to do that. I don't even want to do that because what went wrong in Department of Health is what went wrong for all of us. And it's about what happened and how can we correct.
Okay.
But in terms of for SIU, if SIU were to ask me that, for public protector to ask me that, for the Hawks to ask me that, for the purpose purpose of their work, definitely they need to get to that fine comb and finer detail. But for the purpose of this forum, really, what is the value add? What is it as you, as Thandy Pino, listening to Thandy Pino talking about this hearing that Sean Scott Pty Ltd was not compliant on CSD? What value add are you taking from that? And for me, I don't think I think there's none.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough, yeah.
You know, so hence I'm saying that this forum is for us as STM practitioners to share our experience and to say how can we correct and how can we do things better.
Sure.
You know, yeah, and that's how I want to package this for me. I've gone through a lot. I have depression.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you know,
We
if you want to
understand.
take me through that painful thing, let's do it offline.
No. Sure.
For the
sure.
purpose of this, I think let's keep it in that fashion
So,
to say how can we correct it moving forward.
so share with us then what you think those lessons are that.
So basically, Sean, it's one thing I've taken away from this is when you choose an organization, you should ask yourself what do you know about that organization and the leadership of that particular organization. And when I'm talking about leadership, I'm talking ethical leadership, I'm talking about compliance, I'm talking about corporate governance and all other things, you know, because the culture of the organization, values and everything, you know, when you look back at the history of Department of Health, and which I'm part of now, yesterday we have the former MEC of Health being arrested.
Yeah.
Everybody thought I was in jail as a result, you know. We have MEC Tekani Mahlangu also who left because of the drama of the life. We have MEC Bandile Masuku left because of the
So slowly and clear.
We have MEC Bandile Masuku who left because of the drama of PPE, you know. And therefore, for me, is to say you need to find to make a decision to say, this is a company and do I want to join that company? Well, personally for me, because I love to fix everything, trust me when I tell you, I'm still going to end up in a department like health again. That's just me. And I'm probably going to get burned again. That's just me. I love. Yeah, no, it's a disability that I have and I'm not, you know, probably even Department of Health can say, come back and mess up again and fix, I'll do that. But I think it's important that one, you ask yourself about your values and your principle and say, is this an organization that I want to associate myself with? You know, for me, I'm a hardcore public servant at heart. I'm probably going to be going for a department like health again because I just want to fix. I feel that I have a lot to give this government.
Yeah.
I'm experienced, I'm knowledgeable, I'm bold, I can give back. But for those who don't want drama, you might maybe want to take a look at a company like that and say, you know what, I think I'll pass. Because if you have a company that does not have issues like that, you won't have instructions like that, you won't have, you won't wake up and find out that there are people that you trust that you should not have trusted, you know. But it's important that you actually kind of ask yourself those questions before you join an organization. Because supply chain is always an emergency. Forget about COVID. We are always in an emergency. We are always running around because of our customers. And therefore, how do you then find your kind of your stillness to say, in this emergency, how am I going to still serve my customers and move on again? I mean, my situation with first day, I don't think, I did say that to Clement that in a normal circumstances, you won't be working in an organization on the first day wanting to commit 700 million. You know, you'll be spending time in HR. But it happened with me. What lesson can you learn? What lesson I learned maybe is actually a conversation I should have had with my CFO to say, okay, fine, here are the companies that you're giving me for me to commit. Let's talk some more about these companies. You know, because right now I will be lying if I say that my CFO said to me, these companies are contracted and they are compliant and they are appointed through competitive bidding. No, she did not say that.
Didn't say that, yeah.
I did not ask her that, you know, because I went with that professional trust. So for me, if you find yourself in the situation on a first day, maybe then extend the conversation. To say, okay, fine, I understand that we have to appoint these companies. Can we just talk more about them? Tell me about these companies. It's probably going to be like about a 10-15 minute conversation that will save you your job and your reputation. But something that happened to me, situation like this, we can't really say that it will never happen again. We can't really say that you won't come to a job where people are running around and they need you to make a decision when you run in. No, but a 5-minute conversation probing more information, I think it would have saved me a lot of trouble. And I did not do that. So this is one thing I think maybe everybody else would take from it. How do you know who you trust? Guys, we're not human behavior experts. You won't know. You can't walk around with a trust thermometer and put in people's mouth and see the level of trust that you can place in them. No. You walk in there hoping. You just walk in there hoping that these are people of integrity, and they won't throw you under. But hence I'm saying that I'm a member of the Institute of Directors, I'm a certified director. My research on MBA was on corporate governance, and there's one thing that I learned about the business judgment rule. Business judgment rule is all about putting yourself in a space where you can confidently say, I did my best to get all the information I need to make a decision. So adopt that mindset to say, ask yourself those questions to say, is this information enough for me to make a decision and act? Because the issue of trust, guys, like I said, you know that human behavior expect some people, some characters are just warm characters in their nature. You warm up to them very easily and then you trust them very easily. But the main thing is don't let your guard down. Make sure that you have all the information before you make a decision. What you do when
are you concluding on that trust issue that because we don't have this thermometer that we should really not trust anyone?
Forget about not trusting anyone, because it's about, like I said, business judgment rule.
Yeah.
You still have a responsibility to get all the information to make a decision. Sometimes even the very same people that you trust, Sean, there would not be any malicious intent, but they might give you insufficient information. Then what are you going to say? Because we can't say that everybody that has failed us is people that we don't trust. It is people that we trust, and we still even trust today, but things went wrong. So take that responsibility. Put yourself in, and you'll never cover everything. My situation might still happen again, but it becomes easy for you to reflect and forgive yourself and move on when you've done everything that you could. Because for me, where I'm sitting right now, there's that pounding thing in the back of my mind to say, why didn't you ask her? Why were you in such a hurry? You understand? But if you've done that and things still go wrong, you quickly forgive yourself and move on. So you know what? Certain things, if they're meant to happen, they'll happen, and there's nothing that I can do about it. So that's that. And when it all goes down, supply chain, I think now everybody can tell that, put it in writing, but also it was the unfortunate thing that I had to do, but unfortunately is the environment that we work in. When I sent that email, I copied my personal email. And what happened is that on the day of my suspension, my laptop was still taken. If I did not copy my personal email, I would not have been able to prove that I did caution. So unfortunately, guys, that one, you need to have your proof somewhere. I remember when I typed that email, I did not blind copy my personal email because I could be accused of stealing my employer's information. I put my personal email there for everybody to see that I copied it.
In the CC, not the blind copy.
Yes, on the CC. And one of the senior managers did pick it up and said to me, I saw that you blind copied your personal email. And I said to him, that's because I know where this is going. I know where this is going, and when it gets there, I will need to prove. So it's unfortunate, colleagues, but you need to cover yourself somehow, so that when it all goes down, you are able to prove that I actually did something. You know, so for me,
have you thought of anything else that you could have done?
Hence, I'm saying that it's bad, Sean, to say that I should not maybe allow myself to get sucked into the emergency. You know, and like I'm saying that there's a lot of lessons that are coming from the COVID experience, from leadership point of view, from labor relations point of view, from mental health point of view. There's a whole lot of lessons that are coming up. I got infected with COVID and my whole family as well in the midst of all of this.
When was that?
I around July. When I was suspended, I came back to work on Monday after COVID, and I was suspended on a Friday. So that's basically what happened. I mean, I had a team of 150 people, but I was working with 70 at one go because one is infected, one is isolation, one is taking care of whatever. So there's a lot that I have taken from this experience. But hence I'm saying that the one thing that I took away that I would advise for somebody to do is that business judgment rule, and that 2-second conversation, it won't have to extend it by additional 3 minutes or 10 minutes. That's going to save you a whole lot.
That's the big one. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's that for me. And hence I'm saying that what to do when it all goes down, please, my former CFO, one CFO I had many years ago, sorry for my language, she used to say, you must make sure that you cover your S in writing. And I did cover my S in writing. So do that. But in the end, our profession will never be kind. It will always be this harsh, it will always be this painful, it will always be this unappreciative, but we love it and we do it, and I'm still here, and I really hope that, hence I'm saying that people can take from my experience that this is what Thandy did, and I'm not going to do that, and I'll be a better whatever. So that's that, Sean.
Well done,
and
Thandy. Well done. You've studied, you've committed to this profession. Do you have any regrets about getting into public procurement?
No. What I love about public procurement is that you always know something. I'm an expert about everything. When you go to the specification committee, everything that you buy, you speak to an engineer today, tomorrow you're speaking to a caterer, next week you're speaking to a water purification chemical person. That's the part that I love about my job. That's why I'm saying that I will always be a public, I'll always be a procurement person, and I'll always want to fix. Don't be surprised if you find me in ESCOM. Don't be surprised if you find me in Kandla.
Right.
That's just how much I love what I do, and that's how beautiful it is. And every profession, Sean, has dynamics and its own problems and whatever.
Yes.
Yeah, we can't say supply chain is more difficult than HR or whatever. Every environment has its own dynamics. I found my heart. The biggest pain for me when all of this started, I said to my mother, they did not take a job for me, they took away my passion. But I realized that they have not taken my passion. Actually, it's me who will take away my passion. So I'm still here.
Well done.
I have my consulting firm now, and we'll see. So yeah.
I've got to ask you this question. Ronald, I see your hand there. Thandy, do you ever feel scared because of what's been happening in this space? Are you ever worried?
Sean, everybody, when somebody asks me if I'm safe, I always tell them I don't have a bulletproof vest.
They mustn't what, sorry?
I don't have a bulletproof vest. Being scared takes life away from you. And if people want you, they will get you. If people want you, they will get you. So being scared, really, it doesn't make sense to me. It really doesn't make sense to me. I feel that I'd rather have a day that I live today with my daughter, knowing that I'm a loving and happy mother, than lock myself in a bedroom and my daughter won't be able to talk to me because I'm scared of somebody shooting me. No, I can't. If it's going to happen, it's going to happen. And my job has been dangerous from 2004, 2006, when I first became a procurement officer. And I remember even with health, my husband said to me, "You've dodged so many bullets in your career. This one, it had to come for you." So it's going to come. That supply chain, that procurement is like that. You work with people's money. It's politics of the stomach. The bullet is going to come, and you don't know when it's going to come. But in the meantime, just do your best. So the issue of fear, guys, I've had funny cars around my house. I've had pictures being taken of my house. I've had those things happening while this whole thing was ongoing. That's the reason why I was fired. But if they want me out, I will be out. I don't have military veteran what around my house. So yeah.
Mm. There's if you're able to look at the chat, Tandi, there's some great comments that are coming from people. So maybe just scan the chat. Ronald, you've got a question?
Sure.
Ronald, your connection is very poor. There we are. There. Try again, Ronald.
How is it shown now? Is it
Yeah,
better?
that's better. Yes.
Okay, no, thank you so much. Thank you. I was saying good morning, Sean, and good morning to everyone. Thank you so much to Thandy. I think your account really means a lot to the profession. I might have joined very late. I was stuck in another meeting, but what I've heard so far is really encouraging. Now, I just want to pick your brain, Thandy, in terms of, we all know what happens in supply chain. We all know, everyone thinks supply chain is easy. Supply chain is like going to Pick and Pay. It's more than that. So my question really is about your perspective and your view in terms of, if we had a professional body that really represents members, what would be the landscape? Could this have been different in terms of protecting those officials who probably get victimized for doing the right things? If we had a professional body, could it have been different? And what could it have been to the members, particularly to yourself as a professional who stand up to do the right thing? And if we don't have a professional body, what is it that needs to be done to protect the officials, to protect the members that are doing the right thing? So I'm just throwing this question just to pick your brain. Maybe Sean, you can also come in.
So looking more at from an industry perspective, we don't really have an industry body or professional body at the moment. So if that were to be in place, what would Thandy be looking for that to do, and how could it help? So looking to the future, Thandy, any thoughts on that? Have you given that any thoughts?
Sean, what is happening with supply chain practitioners is actually not a supply chain matter, it's a labor relations matter.
Just say it again.
What is happening is not a supply chain matter in terms of the SCM profession, but it's more of a labor relations matter, if you look at it, because it's about an employee being victimized, it's about an employee not being protected. It's just that we are contextualizing it to supply chain. I mean, we have professional bodies, like you have your SAICA, you have there's a whole lot of professional bodies, but also there's unions. There's unions. Unions are there to protect employees when they're being victimized. And I think when you want to have a professional body that taps into labor relations matters, and you can somehow pollute this whole issue around roles and responsibilities. The only thing is that with supply chain profession, it's so dire. A lot of them are actually happening in supply chain as compared to other business units, And when I was doing my research, I came across one policy document from the ANC when they were defending their cadre deployment policy. And they were saying that the problem is not the cadre deployment policy, the problem is the quality of the cadre. We have a problem with the caliber of our leaders, of our professionals, of our colleagues, and all of that. Because the minute we have a situation where certain things get to be rationalized, I remember there was one time when I was watching the interview by Ace Mahashuli. He was not talking about him being innocent. He was talking about what about others who did other things. So now you're sitting with somebody rationalizing wrongdoing. And for as long as we have leaders like that, you can professionalize it all you want. You can put all the whatever. It is just not going to work because the caliber of our leaders is not up to scratch. So what is happening in SCM is a labor relations matter. It's purely a labor relations matter. Somebody can take it to HR and report I'm being victimized by my boss. I'm being made to do wrong things. But that boss is the boss of the other boss who's, so it's not gonna end. The only way for it to end is for you to go. or at least for us to make noise about it. Maybe let's talk about it. Let's make noise about it and say, what can we do? But nothing will stop. The only way for us to stop is to have our leaders stop your politicians saying, appoint this particular company or else. I mean, I remember there's this type of power, I think it's coercive power, where you have somebody getting you to do something because they can punish you if you don't.
If you don't, yeah.
And that is the coercive power that is there. And whatever professional body may not necessarily remove that kind of a behavior. So the issue that we need to deal with here is a behavior. In terms of professionalizing the professional body, it's definitely needed for supply chain because there's a whole lot of things that we have in terms of what profession, what qualification, how far do we go? The problem, some of the problems that we are experiencing in SPM is because people don't have the proper capacity. I did financial information systems at school, actually. I'm only now busy with your SIPS qualification. So you can imagine the whole mix of skill and competencies that you have in SPM, that it's there and has been there for a long time because of lack of professionalizing the profession. But I think that the minute we're thinking that when we get professionalized, we'll be saved from such, no, I don't think we will be saved because this is purely a labor relations matter.
What a professional body would do is put in place some code of sort that members would need to sign up to. And that wouldn't have helped you in this situation.
So yeah.
But what about other things? Just brainstorming now. I mean, support structures. Would that maybe have helped you?
Sean, the law is we are in, like there's a lot in terms of the law. There's one article I came across yesterday on LinkedIn by one lady talks about the fiduciary responsibilities being extended to public servants. And I said to her, there's Municipal Systems Act, Municipal Structures Act, MFMA, PFMA, Companies Act, Clean Code, you name them, they are there. The issue is the act, the political willingness and the leadership willingness. If people are not willing to create that particular environment for you to be protected and feel safe, hence I'm saying that if you have a leader on TV rationalizing wrongdoing, and Ace Makashudi is not the only one. A lot of leaders, when they are found wanting, the first thing they come and say, no, what about the CR statement donation? What about it? They point wrongdoing of other people before they take accountability and responsibility of their own actions. So all these bodies can be there. But for as long as our leaders are not committed to protecting us, I remember one incident that happened at Health with one of my officials. There was an order that needed to be signed off and it was urgent. We needed to submit an advert for placement. And this guy says to me, okay, Chief, because when you signed it, can I issue the purchase order? I said, no, we need to get the HOD to sign. And he says to me, no, we know the HOD is going to sign, but can I push this thing? And I said to him, don't you dare, because tomorrow I'm going to use that very same thing to charge you. And how unfair is that? This guy wants to go an extra mile for me. He's saying to me, I understand this is urgent. Can I issue the order while you are dealing with the approvals? And I said, I'm not going to allow you. Because I felt that I needed to protect him. Because I know if it doesn't get approved, when he is charged, they're going to say to him, you issued an order without authority. They're not going to say you were trying to remedy the situation. And that is the environment that we need to create for our practitioners. That every time when they go an extra mile for us, they need to get comfort knowing that we can back them. But I couldn't even back him myself because I know how painful and brutal the environment is. And I said to him, I appreciate what you're trying to do, but don't. Because when it goes down, it will be me who will be signing a charge sheet saying to you that you issued an order without authority. So this is it's a leadership matter that really needs to be worked on. There's only so much that the young ones that are coming after us can do if we don't create a conducive environment for them to actually work hard and go an extra mile, because risks are everywhere. Supply chain is another a name for risk. Everything in supply chain is a risk.
Is this costing you a lot of? Is this costing you a lot of money?
What?
I don't know. Have you got lawyers that you've had to bring in and?
Yeah, well, I had to. I mean, my matter is going to the labor court, so I am going to be using a lot of money to defend it in court. But like I'm saying, Sean, it happened. It can't be reversed. It has to go this way. And my name was called. It was my turn now. So I just have to embrace it and go with the flow. And I know when I come out, it's going to be, my story will be a survival guide for someone else. You know, so you just let it go. You can't change. I can't change it. Now I just have to move on. I just have to continue. So yeah.
Yeah, Sean, maybe if I may come in there, probably that was the reason why I was asking Thandy to say what would be your opinion, because one view that one can look at is what would be the role of a professional body in these situations? Can the professional body have a legal helpline that helps officials who get victimized for doing the right things? Because in the event that you don't have funding to support your legal fees, because we all know the legal fees, how expensive they are.
Yeah.
But if we have a professional body, whether it's SIPS or whoever, who then provide that legal helpline to the officials who get victimized for doing the right things, can that not change the landscape? And I 100% agree with you. It's a leadership problem, and the fish starts stinking from its head. And if that is not fixed, then it means we all suffer the consequences. But I think we need to start somewhere, developing the right leaders, ethical leaders. But what do we do? That's the question.
Yeah. Thandy, any thoughts?
No, you know, Sean, I think what you also need to be careful of is that not all cases that are happening in supply chain practitioners are innocent. And that's what makes it tricky. You know, that there are instances where Thandy can speak well and defend herself very well, but Thandy actually does have shenanigans that she has done. And this is where it becomes very, very tricky to know if I were to support this person, why would I? I mean, there are people that I thought will come through for me and stand up for me, and they haven't. And I understand, because it could come out either way. They were not there. You know, they were not there. I'm saying this version, SIU says this version, Department of Health says this version. Maybe what if Thandy is also lying? You know, this is where it becomes very tricky when one then has to stand out there and provide support. There's one organization that I'm talking to. I'm going to be offering my corporate governance skill on a pro bono. They also want to open a body that will raise legal fees for instances like that, you know. So yeah, there's conversations that we had for that purpose, because it is very expensive. And at the end of the day, you'll only get your reward when you win the case 2-3 years later. I mean, labor court takes anything between 3 to 4 years. Between then and now, what must happen to me? I can't be employed. I can't, and nobody wants to touch me. My reputation is all messed up. And what then do we do then? You know. So it's quite a lot of things. But because I am in government, we know that we always have to want to narrow everything for one to focus on their core. You know, not try to take everything, because my situation, it's similar to HR as well. You find HR practitioners being told to appoint certain people when certain political parties come into power. I once had one department that I know where I was told actually by a friend, one MEC came with 23 directors that he wanted to appoint as directors. And HR had to appoint those people. One DDG was actually suspended because they refused. You know, there's a case of SABC right now, the group chief of news something. He refused to actually cover the story of the president because they did not have the money. Guess what? Her case is starting now next week. She's been charged. You know, so it's not a supply chain thing. It's so broad. It cuts across a whole lot of different industries as well. And basically, the core of it is when you speak against wrongdoing, you are going to be victimized. You know, so that's the set part of it. But I think that the supply chain body is long overdue. That we know that we need. We really, really need, because with the way things are going, I don't foresee young people aspiring to get into this profession. Honestly, I don't see people wanting to come into this profession, because they just see us as a bunch of corrupt people who just steal money from them.
Well, you're playing your part to so well done to you. Did you have a chance to scan the chat?
Yes, I did. From it's actually comments from a lot of colleagues. I must expose someone in this chat. Homoso, thank you so much. Homoso, I've never met, but we've had chats as well, sharing her experience, and she's one of those people that the conversations that I had with they kind of also helped me through this difficult journey. So Homoso Mucheka, hi and thank you.
Well done. Well done. And you've
So,
got many others there that
yes,
are
I
also
see,
giving you
yeah.
support as you can see.
So
So
thank
good
you,
one.
thank you very much, colleagues. So thank you. So let's fix public service. We'll fix it. We'll fix it.
What is next? What is the next step that you're aware of, Thandy?
Currently, I'm running up my consulting firm. I'm doing trainings, facilitating, consulting. I've done trainings with public works as well as SA tourism. I'm training them on bid committees. And another thing that I've added, maybe I think also to share with the team that they're appreciating a lot is I've added a case law as well on my training material.
Fantastic.
So that's what I'm doing, because that is not a barrier for me to operate. So basically now I'm in a space where I'm sharing my experience in terms of, not in terms of what I've been through, but in terms of my experience in supply chain, because there's still a lot of things that are going wrong. I would love for one day we can have a discussion on the outcome of what SIU is doing and what it means for us. Because now we used to think that when something is irregular and there's no suspicion of criminal element, a matter can maybe be looked into condoning and recovery. But we now have companies being taken to court. We have people, there's a whole lot of interesting things that are coming up through what SIU is doing. And I would love for us to also have a reflection to say, what is happening with the SIU? What does it mean for us? What does it mean for our customers? What does it mean for our bid committee members? How can we empower them better? Because I had a conversation with you, Sean, yesterday, the matter of digital vibes. My lesson from digital vibes is that our bid evaluation committee members are not—
You're talking about digital vibes.
Yes, are not reviewing are not moderating their scores. So there's a lot of lessons that are coming from what SIU is doing, which I'm watching with interest. That I think we would also at some point it would be nice to package it into something that we can have in a forum to say, now that we have SIU having done this, having won this case, having set aside these contracts, how are we changing our policy? How are we changing our processes? How are we empowering our committee members? How do we do things better? So this is a very wonderful time to be alive in terms of learning so much about the space, and therefore I'm there. I'm excited every time when I see something on the news. I also want to read up on it, and there's so much that I'm learning from it, and so I think for me, maybe next year we can have something packaged together to say in a nutshell, what can we learn, and maybe also bring SIU in. Yes,
I've made a note of that. That's a great idea.
Me and them, we are like Zimbabwe in England, but it's our personal matter. But generally, I do think that SIU can help us a lot if we can have them in and share with us about their experiences of all these cases that they are dealing with, and also AG, and also what advice.
Sure.
Yeah. So, Sean, I love the sound of my voice, but I'm tired of talking.
Very well. Well done. Thank you.
And I just thank you to everyone.
I wanted to ask you though, also, just in terms of the process, I mean, is there a criminal investigation, or is there a case? Is this going to court sometime? And I mean, is there? That status.
For me, there is none.
Okay.
Remember, there's irregularity, there's criminality. So with SIU, in terms of their recommendation, was I've contravened with the PFMA, but there's no criminal element that has been found on me. Therefore, no, my pension is not being taken. I'm not taken to court or anything.
Great.
Of that nature. It's just purely about a consequence of contravening with the PFMA.
Not following PFMA.
Yes.
Which I think is a tough one for them to defend. Good one. Thank you, Thandy. Well done to you. And very, very
Thanks,
good positive comments and supportive comments of people just saying, hey, thanks very much for sharing. And what you've gone through, many people have also, Sikle's got some comments there you might want to have a look at. I think she...
from the July unrest.
There's Sikle, we must maybe unpack that a little bit more, and we could possibly do some of that early in the year. Yeah, very good. So thank you very much, and all the best to you, and well done for the spirit and for your attitude. And that's possibly the biggest lesson for me from this discussion is how important your attitude is in this process. So well done, Thandy.